For decades, B&M have been the biggest and most respected rollercoaster manufacturer on the planet. They built some of the most iconic coasters ever made, from huge hypercoasters to intense inverts, flying coasters, and wing coasters. B&M has built a reputation for creating rides that are smooth, reliable, and absolutely massive. But recently, the rollercoaster industry has started to change. Manufacturers like Mack, Intamin have been pushing launches and extreme elements and recently ambitious layouts. And now B&M has responded with something very different: Tormenta Rampaging Run, a coaster that could represent a new era for B&M, but it also raises a massive question. Is Tormenta the coaster that proves B&M can evolve in modern industry, or a sign that they're struggling to keep up? Now, before we get into this, I actually haven't ridden Tormenta, so this is going to be a review of the ride experience itself. Instead, I want to look at why Tormenta represents for B&M and why this coaster is so important, and whether it could be a genuine turning point for the company. Because I think Tormenta could be one of the most important B&M coasters we've seen in many years. Part 1. The B&M Formula. To understand why Tormenta matters, we need to talk about B&M itself. Bolivar Malyard has been building roller since the 1990s, and over the years they've been known for their pretty specific formula. Big, smooth, reliable coasters with massive track, high capacity, and layouts designed to keep operating constantly round the clock. And that's not a bad thing though. However, for theme parks, reliability and capacity is the most important thing. A coaster can be the most insane ride in the world, but if it's constantly experiencing downtime or can't handle huge crowds, that's a big problem. That's where B&M has traditionally been incredibly strong, but there also has been a bit of criticism with the modern B&M coasters. Some enthusiasts feel they've become predictable. You usually know what you're getting with a B&M. A massive drop, large sweeping elements going round corners, smooth transition into them, and an overall experience that might be a brilliant but perhaps doesn't feel as experimental as what other manufacturers have driven like Mack and Intamin. Meanwhile, the competition has been getting stronger. Part 2. The industry has changed. Look at the modern rollercoaster industry. Manufacturers are constantly trying new things. Intamin has created increasingly intense multi-launch coasters and unusual ride systems. Mack has pushed its launch coaster technology and developed increasingly ambitious layouts. RMC completely changed what people thought was possible with a hybrid and single rail coaster. And manufacturers like Vekoma have undergone huge transformations, from being criticised for rough rides to building some of the most exciting modern roller coasters in the industry. Expectations have changed though. Enthusiasts don't just want a roller coaster to be tall anymore. They want airtime, whippy transitions, and also nice smooth transitions, no rattle, near misses, and unique inversions. Also, a nice fast pacing instead of a slow pacing, elements they've never experienced before, and that's where Tormenta becomes really interesting, because this doesn't feel like B&M simply building another traditional coaster. Feels like B&M looking at the modern industry and saying, okay, let's show you what we can really do. Part 3. Why is Tormenta different? Tormenta Rampaging Run feels significantly different because it appears to take the things B&M is already known for and combine them with a much more modern approach to coaster design. This is still recognised to be a B&M coaster because obviously the track, but the scale, elements and overall ambition make it feel like the company is pushing its own boundaries. And I think that is very important. B&M doesn't necessarily need to become Intamin. It doesn't need to become RMC. It doesn't need to become any company who has its own identity. It needs to be B&M. But Tormenta could prove that B&M can take that famous reliability, capacity, engineering, and all the aggressive modern layouts into one package. by B&M. If that works, B&M could potentially have the best of both worlds. A coaster that parts can trust operationally, but the enthusiasts also generally desperate to travel across the road to experience it. Part 4. Is this really a breaking point? Now, calling Tormenta a breaking point for B&M might sound a bit dramatic, but realistically, B&M isn't suddenly going to, if one coaster isn't the considered best in the world, it disappears. Part 3. Why is Tormenta company has an enormous catalogue, successful rides, and decades of experience. But do I think there's something at the bigger stake here? Relevance. The coaster industry is becoming more competitive. With all the new rides, Park has more manufacturers to choose from, and those manufacturers are offering increasingly impressive ride systems. So the question isn't necessarily, will B&M survive if Tormenta fails? It's, what direction do B&M go into next? If Tormenta is hugely successful, could we see more experimental B&M layouts? Could future hybrids and gigas become more intense than they already are? Could we see a B&M experiment with more unusual elements? Could Tormenta influence that entire new generation of B&M coasters? This is what makes the ride so interesting to me. Part 5. The other side of the argument. But there's another argument here. Does B&M actually need to change? Think about it. B&M's reputation has already been built about consistency. Theme parks don't necessarily choose a manufacturer based on purely what coaster enthusiasts on social media want, like me. They have to think about reliability, maintenance, capacity, operations, guest appeal, marketing, all that sort of longevity. And B&M has spent decades building a reputation in them exact areas. Maybe B&M doesn't need to chase every new industry trend. Maybe their strength is that they don't chase. Tormenta could be there for, but less of a complete reinvention and more of an evolution. B&M taking what already works and pushing it further. And personally, I think that's more interesting possibility. Because if B&M can evolve without losing what makes a B&M roller coaster, that could open the door to some seriously new rides in the future. Part 6. The verdict. So, was Tormenta Rampaging Run the making or breaking point for B&M? I don't think so. It's literally going to make or break. I don't think so. It's going to make or break the company. B&M is far too exciting for anything to depend on one single coaster. But could it be a turning point? Absolutely. Tormenta could be the coaster that shows where B&M is heading next. If this new direction is successful, we could potentially be entering a complete new era for the manufacturer. One where B&M combines everything it's famous for: reliability, capacity, smoothness, huge scale with new interesting layouts. Again, I haven't personally ridden Tormenta, so I can't tell whether it's actually good from a riding experience, but looking at what B&M is trying to achieve, I think it's important it goes far beyond whenever it ends up into someone's top 10. A statement that B&M isn't standing still, and over the next few years we're going to find out whether this is simply one ambitious coaster, or the beginning of a completely new era for B&M. But what do you think? I would really like to know, is Tormenta Rampaging Run the future of B&M or the failure of B&M? Do you want to see them build more extreme and experimental coasters like this? Drop down and comment, and some videos will be here. Make sure to like and subscribe. Keep on looping.